This is Makkah, stone alleys, a square house, a city that never bows.
Do you hear that? Thunder?
Something's coming from the south.
Not thunder, not rain, not a caravan, an army.
Whose banners are those? Abyssinia, and beasts we have never seen.
This is the army that came for the house of Allah. This is the story of the army of the elephant. This is Surah Al-Fil.
ألم تر كيف فعل ربك بأصحاب الفيل.
This is the man who would move an army for envy and for profit, Abraha al-Ashram, governor in Yemen. He built a great church in Sana'a to pull trade and pilgrimage south, caravans with their taxes, pilgrims with their markets, so his city would become the center. But the road still ran to Makkah, and the prayers still faced the Kaaba. One night a report reached him. Al-Qulays had been defiled and mocked. It was the opening he had been waiting for. For months he had wanted a reason to act, not as a raider, but as a ruler whose anger could be dressed as law. An affront to faith wounded his pride. Pride pushed him to policy. He met with his own council, men who spoke of lowering tolls and buying the routes, but he chose a different path and resolved to stop people from going to the Kaaba. He set the plan in simple steps. The army would move at first light. Letters would ride ahead to the tribes with a plain bargain. If you stand aside, your markets stay open. If you block the road, you will be punished in public. He turned to his scribe.
Write what I have said. Let the message ride before the dawn.
Through the night, seals were pressed and riders sent. What began as an insult became a decision, and that decision began a journey north, toward Makkah and the house that would not bow to him. The decree left Sana'a on horseback, while the seals were still warm. By the time the courtyards emptied, couriers were already riding north. Letters rode ahead of the army and were read at way stations and wells. Submit, and your markets remain open. Defy, and the answer will be given in public.
It is best we do not involve ourselves. Trade must not be endangered.
We will not fight the army of the south. Let the Kaaba be.
Most elders weighed profit and stood aside. A few replied politely and pledged not to interfere, and some gathered to resist in the narrow mountain passes. At the first pass, the resisting leaders were seized and hanged in public, and the route fell quiet. Hostages were taken from the leading families to guarantee safe passage through the next settlements. A local guide was forced to walk at the front, someone who knew the valleys, the fords, and the usable crossings. The march kept a steady pace. Merchants traveling both directions spread the news faster than the army could march. A southern governor had found his pretext. His letters offered bargains, and tribes were stepping aside. By the time the army reached the next marker, word of the march had already reached the towns ahead. The city they were moving toward would hear about the army before it saw it, and would have to decide how to respond. By the time the march reached its next stop, the story was already ahead of it. In those days, news traveled with caravans. Traders came up from the south and said the same few things in every courtyard. A great army is on the road from Yemen. Their flags are high. Some tribe chiefs tried to stop them in a pass and were punished. At the house in Makkah, Abdul Muttalib, chief of Quraysh, keeper of the Kaaba, grandfather of the Prophet ﷺ, took charge and gave plain directions. Call the elders of every clan to the house. Move the women and children to the hills around the valley. Shut the market stalls. No blades near the house, this is holy ground. Elders were called, families moved, stalls closed. People from every tribe came to the Kaaba. Men, women, the old, the young. Some stood, some sat. Many raised their hands. Voices stayed low but steady, and the prayer passed from one circle to the next like a shared breath. People pray, Ya Allah, Lord of this house, protect your house. Makkah was informed and steady. It would not form ranks in the valley. It would hold to the rule of the holy place and wait for what the invader would do next. By midday, the army's men reached the grazing ground outside the valley and took the herds for their march. It was no longer a rumor. Among the animals they seized were the camels of Abdul Muttalib, who had reached the house quickly. Herdsmen from the edge of the valley came running and told what they saw. They took many, your camels among them. Abdul Muttalib kept the people calm. No blades near the house, keep to the hills. We will not fight on holy ground. Abdul Muttalib walked out from the house, unarmed, toward the camp, and asked to speak about his camels.
Speak. What do you want? My camels were taken with the herds outside the valley. I have come to ask for my camels.
The court murmured, and Abraha was surprised when he heard that.
You came to me for camels? Not for your Kaaba? I have come to pull it down, and you ask for camels?
I am the owner of the camels. The Kaaba has a lord. He will protect his house.
For a moment, the tent was quiet. Pride met a sentence that did not need soldiers. The ruler waved his hand.
Return his camels. But know this, I will destroy the Kaaba.
The camels were returned. Abdul Muttalib turned back toward Mecca. He told the people to keep to the hills and keep the holy ground free of blades. He told them to ask Allah for protection and leave the house to its Lord. That night, the city was quiet. The army made ready for the morning. Night passed quietly in Mecca. People stayed on the hills and prayed. At first light, the army stood outside the valley with shields lifted and lines set. The road toward the Kaaba lay open. The signal to move was given. Ropes were pulled. The great elephant Mahmud rose, then folded its legs again and would not take a step toward the city. They checked the harness and the chains, spoke to the keeper, tried a second signal. Nothing. The front ranks waited for the first stride that never came, so they turned the animal away from the Kaaba to test it. Faced east, it stood and walked a few paces. Turned west, it moved again. Turned back south, it walked without trouble. But when they faced it toward the Kaaba, it sank down and would not rise. Orders were spoken to urge it forward. Whips were raised and lowered. The keeper showed them the same thing again, so there would be no doubt. Any direction but the Kaaba, it walked. Toward the Kaaba, it refused. Time stretched. Captains shifted plans. Men passed water along the line. The city watched from the slopes and from the courtyard of the house, unarmed, holding to the rule of the holy ground, while the army that had crossed deserts could not make its first step inside the valley. In our own day, we know this moment. Everything prepared, every order clear, and yet one small piece will not move. Power learns its limits when the world says no. They readied one more attempt. Before it could begin, Allah changed the morning. This is Allah's command. This is how He guards His house. Small birds came over the valley, first a few, then more, then full flocks. They flew in rows above the troops, steady and low. Each carried 3 small stones of baked clay, one in the beak, one in each claw. When they passed over the ranks, they let the stones fall.
Look, the birds being, what are they carrying?
Stones! They're dropping stones!
Where a stone struck, a shield rang. Where it touched skin, heat and pain rose. The birds crossed again and more stones fell. The straight line that faced the road to the Kaaba began to bend. Gaps opened where men had stood, shoulder to shoulder. Leaders called to close the line. Men looked up, then lowered their heads. Some raised shields, others covered their faces with cloth. Marks rose on skin. Strength left arms. Those who tried to stand firm sank to a knee and could not rise at once.
Keep your hands raised. The Lord of this house will guard it.
No sword came from Makkah, no spear from the hills. The people stayed in prayer and kept the holy ground free of blades. Allah sent help no tribe could stop. The birds passed once more and loosed what they carried. The front could no longer hold as a single front. Voices for order grew faint. Men shifted back from the places where the stones were falling. This is how Allah dealt with the people of the elephant, by small stones on small wings. By the time the birds wheeled away, the field did not look as it had at dawn. When the stones stopped, the line was gone. Many fell where they stood. Those who turned south fell on the road. There was no pursuit from Makkah, no blades from the hills. Not by swords, not by spears. By Allah's command, reports from that day say most died there. The rest died on the way back. Some dropped at the first rise beyond the valley. Some reached the next well and could not drink. Few went farther and none returned whole. As for Abraham, the harm did not leave him. Witnesses said sores spread where the stones had struck. His body weakened piece by piece. Fingers failed, flesh came away, and the man who had set out in pride had to be carried. At each stop his strength was less than before. He gave short orders, then none. Near Sana'a, his chest gave way and he died in a bad state, far from the house he had sworn to pull down. No sword was drawn in Makkah. The people thanked Allah and kept the holy ground free of fighting. The Kaaba remained, guarded by its Lord. When the valley settled and the smoke of fear was gone, people came down from the hills. Stalls were opened. Water was shared. Thanks were given at the Kaaba. The story of the army began to fade into whispers, and another story began in the same streets. In that same year, the year of the elephant, a child was born in Makkah. In that same year, the year of the elephant, a child was born in Makkah, a child from the line of Ibrahim through Ismail, a child of Banu Hashim, a child whose father had passed before he saw the light, and whose mother, Amina bint Wahb, held him close. The news reached his grandfather, Abdul Muttalib, keeper of the Kaaba. He came to see the newborn and chose a name. They asked, "What will you call him?" He answered once, and then again, so all would hear, "Muhammad, Muhammad," so that he would be praised among people on earth. The city remembered that year for two things. The house was protected, and a child named Muhammad was born. He remained with his mother, under the care and love of his grandfather. Life in Makkah returned to its markets and wells, and people kept the memory of that year by the name they gave it, Am al-Fil, the year of the elephant. According to some narrations, for a number of years after that event, 7 in some reports, 10 in others, many among Quraysh spoke Allah's name alone. But years later in Makkah, when people argued about the Quran, Allah sent a short chapter that pointed them back to what they already knew, the year of the elephant. This is the reminder.
بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم ألم تر كيف فعل ربك بأصحاب الفيل ألم يجعل كيدهم في تضليل وأرسل عليهم طيرا أبابيل ترميهم بحجارة من سجيل فجعلهم كعصف مأكول.
This is not story against story. This is a reminder against pride. The house has a Lord, and he guards his house. You heard the Surah. Now take its lessons. The valley of that story is far from us, but its path reaches our street. What does Surah Al-Fil ask of us now? This is the first truth it presses on the heart. The Kaaba is not ordinary. Allah honored this house. Whoever keeps its respect is raised. Whoever crosses its line is lowered. And the way we treat what Allah made sacred shows what we think of Allah. Guard the Kaaba's honor when you visit. Guard the other sanctities He drew around you every day. Prayer time, people's rights, honest trade, family trusts. This is a sign before a mission. In the same year, Allah protected the Kaaba. A child was born in Makkah, Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Mercy before the message, protection before the call. Remembering that keeps us grateful, not proud. This is power without props. Allah is not in need of means. He broke pride with small birds and small stones. If birds were enough, what of angels? What He wills stands. What He does not will does not stand. Oh, do not worship your plan. Plan, yes, but bow the heart to the one who turns plans. And if you carry only one line from this story into your day, Carry the line of the grandfather of Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam in the tent, straight, balanced, complete. I am the owner of the camels. The Kaaba has a Lord. Say it before a meeting, before an exam, before you answer in anger. Do what is yours and trust Allah with the rest.